Hi y'all, I'm Amber and today I'm going to be doing my January wrap-up and February TBR.
I'm going to talk about the 3 books that I have reread for the...
I'm going to talk about the 3 books I've reread because they are a part of a series and I've talked about them a lot, so I'm not going to say too much about them. And they are the Anne of Green Gables series by Ella Montgomery, the first one being Anne of Green Gables, Anne of Offaly, and Anne of the Island. I like rereading these books at least once a year, and the fact that I started doing this last year where I was reading them at the beginning of the year, I really like because the beginning of the year is always really rough on me, and reading these books at the beginning of the year really helps me get through that rough time and so much. And these books have gotten me through so much, and so much about these books. If you know me, if you've watched any of my videos in the past couple of years, you know how much I love these books. I can't say enough how much these books are wonderful. Not only is the writing beautiful, but the characters are just lovely, and the story just gets me every time. Now I'm going to talk about the 2 library books that I read. The first one being Chopsticks by Jessica Anthony and Roderick Corral, who was the illustrator. Chopsticks is a book that is all of pictures, and although I find the idea interesting, I don't think it's succeeded in the way that they wanted. Even though I got the underlying message, the double-edged meaning of this book, the way that you have to reread it a couple times to actually get the full gist, I still don't think it was all that great. Everybody was like raving about this book, but when I read it I was just like, this book is just, I don't feel like I got out anything that I would have if it was an actual written book. And the ending was just way too open-ended. I was just like, seriously? This doesn't really even feel like an actual ending. I don't mind open-ended books if I feel like there's an ending there. Like with Eleanor Park, it was an ending, but it was open to your interpretation of where it's going to go after the book ended. That kind of ending I don't mind, and actually I can really like, because I can take it wherever I want myself. But with this book, there was really no ending at all, and it really was frustrating to me. So I only was able to give it 2.5 stars. The library book was a collection of poems by Elizabeth Bishop called Geography 3. I picked this up based totally on Ron Millett's recommendation. She talked about this poem called In the Waiting Room, and I was just like, I have to read that poem. It sounds funny, it sounds humorous, and I found it very interesting. It was very humorous. I would really love to buy this book of poems just so that I could actually go over it again, because I feel like everything was very surface to me at that time, but if I read it again, I probably would get more out of it. But I really enjoyed her style with her poems. I know some people have issues with it because it's a little bit direct. It's not as flowery as we all would think poems should be, but I really liked it. You know, it was just one of the things where it captured my fancy, and I think that the things that she's talking about in her poems are very important themes. Elizabeth Bishop just has a way with her words that I really enjoyed. So this book gets 3.5 stars. The first book that I read off my TBR is Dark Sky by Carla Neggers, and this book is about a U.S. Marshal and a Special Forces officer. Paths keep crossing each other's, and they're both after the same guy, but for 2 different reasons. I knew going into this book was going to be the typical romance book with just a touch of mystery going in behind it, and that's what I wanted when I picked this book up. I wanted the romance, and it failed so badly. These 2 people, there was no spark, there was no heat going between them. I was just like, seriously? How can you say you love this guy? How are you going to say you love her when you're both kind of like going meh at each other? I'm just like, there was nothing there, and a lot of it was just the way she wrote the scenes between them. I was just like, oh, where is that spark? I'm so missing it. And the story itself, there was really nothing to it. She went around the mystery, the action was weirdly written, where the special forces officer Ethan Brooker would be running after this guy in this bit of woods, and he would have enough time to talk about the beauty of the land, and I'm just like, yeah, right, like he would even be thinking about it. Nothing there that would feel that it was important to what was happening in that moment. I was just like, he stops and talks about his surroundings in that way for at least a couple good minutes, and he's wasting time. So I didn't really understand that. The whole mystery was solved in a couple of pages, and in the whole chunk of this book, nothing really happened that was necessary to the plot, and it was really frustrating. It's not something I'm surprised about either. Also, one of the issues I had, and it's interesting because I don't feel like anybody else noticed this, how the main protagonist, Juliet Longstreet, would always make excuses for the sexist views of her family. I get her understanding that that's the way they are, but it's another thing to make excuses for that kind of view. And I was wondering, is this author saying something about feminism in that? And I was kind of frustrated with the author in that, because I'm just like, we should not be making excuses for people who see things that way. It's frustrating and it's annoying, and people who see women in that light, it bothers me. And the fact that I felt this author was basically making excuses for men who act and talk like that was very bothersome to me. So this book only got 2 stars, but I think I'm dropping it to 1 star. Then I read Dune by Frank Herbert. This is the first book in a science fiction series, and this book is about Peter Atreides, who is moving to the Arrakis planet, and his family suffers from a betrayal by someone very close to them, and he has to try to avenge his family to survive. I did a full review on it. I liked it on the whole, but it was one of those books where things were happening but nothing were happening at the same time, and it was just one of those books where I felt very frustrated with the way it was written, with the main character, with a lot of things. And you can hear all about my thoughts in the review that I did. I'll put a link to everything down below so you can go and check this review out for yourself. Dune got 3 stars. I read East of Eden by John Steinbeck. This is about the Trask and Hamilton family who live in the Salinas Valley, and Adam's family seems to always be retelling the story of the Cain and Abel dilemma. I think that the synopsis of this book is very misleading, so if you're thinking of reading this book, don't read the synopsis. It's not completely as they say it is. Overall, I really found this book very interesting. The philosophical ideas that are in this book was very intriguing to me, but I felt like he was very heavy-handed with his views, and I just never had a chance to really think about one thing and get my mind set on one thing before he hit me with another thing. And I don't know, it was just really hard for me to read. It got really dry, as I said, heavy-handed, especially right after the first part ends and he goes. The first part I actually really liked because he described the Salinas Valley, and his writing was very beautifully written in that first part, but I felt like, as I said, things just fell apart for me after the second part starts. It's just too much all at once for me, and I think it was partly my fault in the way I read it. I think I was just reading too much at one time. I should have just read it in parts. I will be reading this in the far future whenever I feel I'm ready to. This one gets 3 stars. The last book that I read in the month of January is Fever 1793 by Laurie Halse Anderson. I did a full review on it. As I said before, there will be a link down below for you to check it out. Overall, I enjoyed this book, but there were a few issues that really held this book back for me. This book gets 3 stars. Now on to my TBR. I'm only going to talk about the 5 TBR books that I own. I will be reading library books, and alongside I will be reading books. This month I will be trying to finish the Anna Green Gables series, and we'll see if I can go any further with my rereads in the month of February. But my TBR for this month is the first 3 books in the Final Empire series, I think it's called, or it's the Mistborn trilogy, I'm not really sure which. But the first one is Mistborn, the second is The Will of Ascension, and The Hero of the Ages. I'm not going to talk about what they are because I've forgotten what it's about, and I don't want to know when I go into it. I just want to delve into it and just enjoy it for what it is. I have been going back and forth because I picked up these 3 with the assumption that I was going to like it because I liked the Game of Thrones and that's fantasy, and I was like, if I can like the Game of Thrones, I can like this. Everybody loves this book, so the fact that it's so hyped up is kind of scaring me, but I'm going to go into it with an open mind and with the view that if I like it, I like it, if I don't, I don't. And the 4th book that I'm going to be trying to read in the month of February is The Forever Street by Frederick Martin. I am really looking forward to finally getting my chance to read this. I am hoping I can take this plastic cover off. I keep forgetting to do that. The 5th and last book that I'm going to be trying to read off my TBR this month is Forgive Me Not by Elizabeth Lau. This is about Alana Reeves, who after going through a traumatic situation and losing everything she held dear, her memory is completely blank about what has happened. And from her past shows up named Raph, and he is there to try to help her remember what happened to her, and in doing so she, I guess, falls in love. And yeah, it's a typical contemporary romance. It's adult, and I'm hoping that I will enjoy it. It sounds interesting. I got it for free, so it's not like I am, going to be crossed if I like it or not, but I am hoping because it does sound interesting. That was my wrap up and TBR. Tell me down below what you've read this month. I would love to know. If you've done a wrap up yourself, link me down below. I would love to watch yours. Thank you guys so much for watching, and keep warm.